Okay, thank you very much for joining me in the studio today. As you can see, I've got a lovely piece of plywood in front of me, which I pre-made. I'll show you that on another video just up there in the iCards. And this is a painting that I did when I was 10 years old with my mother, and there's a story attached to this painting. I will explain to you as we go along through the video. But that's what I'm going to reproduce today. It's got a lot of memories with myself. But before we do that, let's have a look at the palette and see what colours we're going to be using today.
It's time to learn with our friend Clive. So grab your brush, have a great time. And don't forget to click subscribe.
As you can see, I'm using my own range of colours, those plus others. And these are the colours that I mix by hand in the studio now. And please have a look at the iCards there, and I'll show you how I mix those. And they are available for purchase at www.clive5art.co.uk, and they are slow drying acrylics, so they make life a lot easier for myself and for you. So I've got a Mars black there. I call it Clive's black, but I'm going to go into the colours that you may have. So there's a Mars black there, a titanium white, I've got a Naples yellow, I've got a yellow ochre, cerulean blue, ultramarine blue, and a burnt umber. And that's all the colours I should be using today. But I might throw a couple of others actually on the palette later on. So I'm just going to put them over there and just make some space as I lean over my camera stand. Because I've got another painting on the easel at the moment of a tiger which I'm working on. I've got a little bit of my medium mix there, which I'm just going to put down on the base. Okay, so looking at the sky, that's like a blue-grey if I remember. I'm just looking at the painting I've got there. This is quite a thick impasto type of paint, but I'm going to see if I can replicate that later on. But I'm just going to put the underlining colours in place first, and let's just do that. So I'm going to get some cerulean blue just there, like that. I'm just going to do a block out stage. Now I'm going to put some burnt umber to that, not a black. I want to grey that with a little bit of burnt umber, because ultramarine cerulean blue tends to be a little bit on the green side. We want that dark grey colour, not a dark grey, but like a mid grey colour. But as I said, it's got a lot of green in it, cerulean blue. So you can see I'm just trying to get that colour, and it's a little bit lighter than that. I'm not going to match these colours up perfectly. That's not what we want to do. I want to try and get a close enough match to it, and that should be okay. So I'm just going to put a grey underlining colour in place out of this. I'm trying not to destroy my drawing too much. Like I said, this is just a block out stage. And this was a Christmas present, painting by numbers actually. That's why I was 10 years old and I did it. It was a painting by numbers Christmas present I had, and it was a size of an A4 sheet of paper, which was quite big if you look at the size of that. And my mother and I, we had two of them in the park. And my mother painted one and I painted the other, and we sat there for a couple of hours, maybe a day or so, I can't remember exactly. And we had some fun painting that, and it's a nice memory to have. And the fun thing about that painting was that these paintings there, and they are, as I said, I was about 10, so they're over 45-year-old. They were painted on like a plastic, a form of plastic that, once you've done the painting, you could put that painting then in the oven at a certain degree, and the plastic would shrink. It's like a shrinking plastic, which was phenomenal, because at the time that was like amazing. It was an amazing thing to see, and it came out of the oven that size. And of course, you had to put something over the top of it then, just to keep it a little bit flat, but it was amazing, and that stayed with me all these years. And it was at my mother's house, and then when she passed away, I had that left to me, but along with other things that meant a lot to me and my mother. It was just an amazing thing to have there, really, because Mum never threw these out, obviously. So I've got another one over there that I might try and reproduce as well. And so it carries a lot of memories. It does. It carries a lot of memories. So I'm just going to let that dry a little bit. I'm going to mix a little bit of yellow ochre and a little bit of ultramarine blue together. I want to get a green colour. I want it quite dark, so let's have a look. That's not far off the colour. So we got some green trees in here. I can alter this a little bit, I think. I don't want to destroy my drawing. But we can certainly see where the lines of the mast and things are. Quite a muted type of green. And as I said, this is just the underpainting anyway, so I can, if I wanted to lift the colours out, then I could do that. But for the moment, just as an underpainting, this is fine. And I'm painting on a gesso canvas. As I said, I made myself. The videos are available in the top right hand corner. You'll see a little eye come up, so if you click on that eye, and a little description will fly across, and you can see how I actually got the piece of wood prepared, and along with the gessoing of this particular canvas. And I'm just looking at this, and the drawing that I've actually placed in on here as well, so that's good. That's good so far. Now we got a little bit of yellow ochre. Don't forget, this is years and years of dust and age on here, so these colours were most probably a lot brighter than I'm painting at the moment, and that's what's shown on there. So I'm just going to add a little bit of white to the sky, maybe a lot whiter than that. Just put a little bit of yellow in the sky like this. Why is there yellow in the sky? I don't know. That's the way this painting is, and that's what I've got to reproduce. We don't argue with what we're copying. We just copy it. But what I can do is I can adjust this a little bit after I put the underlining colours in place. As I said, this is just the underpainting stage, and that's okay. We can play with this. We can make it our own a little bit. Bit of warmth in that sky like that. Could certainly play around with this. Sky. Taking me back to when I was painting this with my mother, actually, thinking about it. Our loved ones are never really far from our thoughts, so especially in the time that we find ourselves in the moment with all this virus flying around and taking people away from us, and I have to hold on to today, I think. Drying quite fast onto this gesso is absorbing in the colour there. So I'm going into some ultramarine blue now, and I'm just going to mix that into that sky colour. I'm just going to add a little bit of white to it. Maybe just a bit of burnt umber to that. And then I'm going to put these buildings in place. I want it to be quite painterly looking. Because acrylic is a plastic paint, it's self-sealing. Once the paint dries, it's easy to paint over. At the moment, the gesso is just sucking in the paint, and it's drying very, very quickly. And when you paint on canvas and things like that, it's very important that you prep your surface very, very carefully and use gesso. Even though you buy in prime canvases, what you're going to find is if you're using a raw canvas, then it's going to just suck your paint in, and that's not what you want. You want to be able to manipulate your paint, and you don't want it to dry so fast. Then I suggest you gesso your canvas. You will find a big difference in the ability to paint then. And as I said, once you get that first layer or two layers actually onto your canvas, if you're using canvas, you'll find that the layers on the top of that will smoothly flow across rather than soak into the canvas. But it's very important that we prepare the surface correctly. Otherwise you're just making it difficult for yourself. And trust me, like everybody else, I've struggled so much with acrylics over the years. It just makes sense to get things prepared, because you wouldn't build a house on sand and expect it to stand up. You need to get foundations in place. And at the end of the day, it only takes 5 to 10 minutes to gesso a canvas and get it prepared for painting. So why not just do that anyway, even if you have got pre-prime canvases? Because the difference between a pre-prime canvas and a gessoed canvas is priming is just getting it ready basically to take on the gesso. It's just priming the surface to stop the absorption rate, but it doesn't stop it 100%. And gesso then just finishes the job off basically. Think of it like an undercoat then. Think of it as just like an undercoat. That's important. Okay, so I'm just going to let that dry a little bit there. Now I'm going to carry on working on the sky. I'm going to do this section of the painting first, and then I'm going to move on down there, I think. And I just want to put another layer over the top of that before I start on the bottom. I'm really enjoying this today. I'm just going to lighten that up a bit now. When you're painting on gessos and boards and things like this, painting on this type of surface is a lot different to painting on canvas or paper. So it's hard to explain how much more enjoyable painting on this type of surface is for me, because it's just acting in a different way, and it's just a really nice way to It's a change then. It's a change really. I'm going to get a little bit of pressure, ultramarine blue, white, bit of burnt umber. I just want to darken this top with that bit of blue in place like that. Maybe this, I don't know what time of day this would be really. Back into that lighter colour that I've just mixed up now. Just getting a few little flicks here and there. Just changing that sky in this. I was going to paint this in Paso, quite like that. It was going to be rough. I was going to paint it with a thicker paint. But to be quite honest with you, I'm quite liking the way this is coming along. And then get that nice and light down there, I think. This is the type of painting that you could certainly spend hours on. And I think what I'll do is I'll take this painting to a certain level that I'm happy with for a video, and I might even sit there again then for another hour as I normally do sometimes if I enjoy a painting and I just want to get a painting to look right. I may be sitting there and playing this one for quite a few days, I think. But I thought it'd be nice to just share the video with you at the moment. So I'm going to get some white into that yellow ochre now. I'm going to lighten that right up and maybe bring in some wispy clouds. Like that. Because this is what I can see in my mind's eye. And I don't like copying things perfectly. I like the each painting is its own work of art then, its own being. This is not that. I could never paint that. I could reproduce it and make it look similar, but I could never repaint that because I was 10 when I painted that. So how could I possibly try and reproduce something like that? I couldn't. It's impossible. I quite like the way this is going. I'm thinking a lot about my mother today, actually. She was a wonderful character, my mother. Typical East End Londoner she was, and she was evacuated during the war, and oops, I picked up the wrong colour then. She was evacuated during the war, my mum. Let's get a little bit of that blue in. What happens if we mix a bit of this blue in? Get a little bit of that. Shadow colour in the bottom of these. Clouds and a bit of that yellow there is coming through. Get a bit of ultramarine blue, bit of burnt umber, some white. now this painting is starting to take on its own essence, I think is the word. Yeah, I quite like the way that's coming. I do. Maybe we can get some more. Just you see there's not a lot of white in there, but I don't know, see, the trouble is I can't remember what those colours really look like, because I haven't cleaned that painting for 40 years. So, you know, was it like this? I don't know, but hard to say really. I'm just going to leave that at that, I think. Maybe that could be a little bit lighter there. Yeah, in fact, I think the idea there, I think I got right. It's just that I haven't got tone right. So maybe I should just try and get this tone to be right. On the bottom of this painting like this. I quite like that. I quite like the way that's looking. I want to get a bit of Naples yellow and an ultramarine blue and see what type of green that's going to give me. Not very good. There's not enough yellow in that Naples yellow to give me much of a green. It's more of it's a green blue rather than a green. So I think what I'm going to do is just get some yellow onto my, where's my yellow? I need a yellow, mid-yellow I need. There's a bit of mid-yellow. Again, that's the one I made the other week actually, if you want to look in the iCards. This is the actual yellow that I made. If you look at the iCards, there it shows you how I mixed paint. This was the paint I mixed. So we got a nice bit of green coming in now. Just in a little squigglies, because we don't want a lot of brightness really. Only quite dull. Let's get a bit of that duller type of colour as well. And just to merge that in there. Just let it develop. Doesn't have to be dead accurate, is it? We're not doing an exact copy of this. So I was going to, I decided not to. Right. Okay. So let's just watch that. I want to look at these buildings now, because there are buildings there, but they are. So we're going into some burnt umber and ultramarine blue. Tends to be a little bit on the black side. So we put in a little bit of dry brushing work like this now. Try and keep the edges as sharp as I can. And just dry and brush down. So I'm not painting the whole surface, what I'm trying to do is just get some shadow lines in there. We don't want detail. I don't want to put detail in there because it's just going to make for a harder time for us. So we need to keep it as flat as possible and just dry brushing down very lightly with the brush, just dragging that down like that. Washing the brush out. Get in some ultramarine blue now, some white, a little bit of that dark colour we just mixed, just to dull back that blue that's too bright. Maybe a little bit lighter than that. Just keep trying colours out and thinking, yeah, I mean, need to adjust that a little bit, then adjust it. Getting a bit of ultramarine blue now and just a little flick here and there and then here. You can see my paint already is taking a while to dry. Little tiny little squares like that with the darker colour we done. Maybe some windows or something there in those buildings, nice cool buildings. There you go. I quite like that. Quite like that. I do. So I'm going to go back into some green now and maybe a bit lighter green now. Bringing in some foliage. Just on the front there, maybe. Packing a little bit of. I think what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to work on the underpainting here now. I just want to get a little bit of black into that. I want to put some shadows in this water, so. This is the good bit. Let's get some more blue. A little bit of black this time. Because I just want to really dirty that colour back down a bit. But I'm going to maintain that blue as much as possible. Again, back under there. Again, and do a little bit of burnt umber and black because I want to put this. This is like a rope, wooden stump that they run the rope around to keep the boats in place. That's what that's there for. And just block that out. And we get some shape onto that in a second, and get some of this light. I'll tell you what we'll do. Let's just mix a little bit of yellow ochre and some Naples yellow together, burnt umber. Get a dark yellow, virtually like a sienna-y type of yellow then. Put that in as an underpainting as well. It's important we play with colour. And with underpainting, we just need that base of colour to go in place like that. Just let it go, let it ride. Let it ride. Now as I'm looking at this, that's looking quite dark. Now it's dark, it's dried out a bit, that is. So I'm wondering now whether if I could put a lighter wash of colour over that. So I'm just going to get some cerulean blue and some white. And this is quite a thin, light coat of paint. Which I'm very lightly just dragging across. There, like that. maybe just to lighten that up just a touch. Still getting the windows to look a little bit like they would on buildings like that. There's a way I can actually knock that back again as well later. I think that's what I might do. So I'm just going to work on blocking up my first boat. So a little bit of black and burnt umber just to give me these block out colours that I'm looking for. And just try and paint in this boat as best as we can. I'm just utilizing, let's mix a bit of that to that. Trying to use the same type of colours, so it's quite fun when you paint like this, and I just paint for fun really. And as I said, we can sharpen up details and things after we've done the underpainting. It's just all about getting some shapes and stuff in place at the moment to represent a boat. That's all I'm trying to do at the moment, is just build up some blocks of colour to try and represent a boat. See, I'm not actually painting like lines and things at the moment, just little blocks of colour in. Just trying to get a little bit of light just coming in. Just to break this underpainting up a bit, just to ease my eye off. To be honest, that's what I'm trying to do here, is just trying to ease my eye a little bit now. There's a lot of colour in there, we need to play around with that. Just in a second. I think what I'm going to have to try and do now is just get a very thin brush and a thin bit of paint. Oh! Big mistake. Let's just get my thing. There we are. So that's approximately there, like that. A very, very fine hair sticking at the end of that brush. Okay, so hopefully we got that now. It's a nightmare, that was. Got a line coming down there. Another line coming from there down like that. So I'm just trying to just get some shape into this. Boat at the moment. Using this smaller brush. This gives that little bit of clarity to the form and shape that I'm trying to do. Let's go back into some of this burnt umber and blue. Just put this sail in. Back into some burnt umber now. Burnt umber, ultramarine blue, because we need to darken down bits of this, like that. burn them and that into that grey colour. Just back into some of that light colour now. We need to just get a different brush a minute. Just going to get a smaller brush now. I just want to put some details in. Back into some of this yellow. Get a little bit of yellow and white together. I want to put a bit of light, like as if there's the cabin there. This lighter colour now back in. Concentrating. As I said, this could take me literally hours to get it right. But I haven't got hours, have I? Let's be honest now. I haven't got hours. It's looking quite nice. I still think those buildings are a bit blue behind there, but we can try to improve those, I think. Let's drop my brush. The thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to go and get myself a nice cup of coffee, and I'm going to come back and have a look at this with fresh eyes, because that is very important that we do that, because if we don't do that on a regular basis, then we get colourblind by what we're trying to do as far as the painting is concerned, because you can get really I call it colourblind. It's quite easy to get colourblind in situations like this, because you're focusing so much and you need the rest. You need the rest every 20-30 minutes. You really do. In fact, I think that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to take a little break and come back to that in about 20 minutes, I think. Okay, so what I thought I would do, looking at this now, I'm going to get some of my, this is a zinc mix-in white. It's a very opaque a white, and obviously I sell that on the website as well. What I like to do with this is thin down that with a little bit of my my medium mix, and I'm just gonna, rather than try and lighten those buildings there, I'm just gonna go across there with a little bit of this mixing white. Now what that's gonna do is just gonna dull back those buildings a little bit on those trees as well, because I could have mixed them a little bit, could have painted them a bit lighter, but I quite like this effect of the zinc mix in white, because it gives that little bit of haziness to the background while killing some of the brightness of colour that can show through. And I do this a lot with like mountainscapes and things like that. So basically what it's doing is just putting very, very, very thin, opaque coat of white paint just over those buildings and those trees and maybe the bit of the sky there like that, and it's just gonna just knock it back a bit, make it look so in your face. So you could have I could have mixed a blue slightly lighter, but I do like this effect that I get from that. So what I'm going to do now again is getting my mal stick, which again this stick was made on a video that I did a couple of weeks ago. If you want to see how that's made, then I'll try and put that in the iCards for you. Just trying to take a deep breath then and trying into as straight a line as possible. As I said, I might just take this on and just carry on painting this for a bit when I finish the lesson, but I just want to get 90% of it done, I think, today on this lesson. There we go, we got another one coming in then. Down like that. Oops, just make that a bit heavier. There you go. Going back into a small brush now and picking up some burnt umber, some white, same type of colours. Same type of colours then. We'll just paint this boat in now. go. I want to put a bit of lighter blue in there, maybe like that. Dark shadows in these windows. Just a little bit of black. Maybe there's a little line here and there and here, like this. Going into a different brush now, and let's get some of this burnt umber, some yellow ochre together, as we made on the other boat. Let's try and just make it a little bit darker there. I just want that a little bit darker, so I'm just going to add a little bit of black to that. I'm just playing around with some colours, a little bit of blue, a bit of black, a bit of burnt umber, get some dark colours. Just into this boat like that. You can see the cabin more on this one. Now we can bring that in a bit more. Maybe put something on the side like that. Just put in a bit of highlight in. Just picking up a bit of the cerulean blue and white just to change a few bits and pieces in like this. Just darken this up down here like that. Let's get some of this yellow ochre colour. Mixing that in like this. Just plain old burnt umber now. Put a bit of that burnt umber on the stump while we're there. Getting rid of this white now eventually. Just mixing all these colours together. It looks boat-like, but we get in there. We are getting there. Trust me, we are getting there. I'm picking up a little bit of this lighter colour now and just putting a few little bits and pieces in, just like this. playing around with some colours and shadows, and there's no form to this. There's just these little tiny marks that we're putting in onto this now are going to make their own shapes up as we put in different light and mid-tones and dark colours in. And by doing that, it'll make things that are there. You're painting things that are there, they're not there, if that makes any sense. So it's just like as you're picking up a little bit of highlights on certain things, and I put in a little bit of a light reflection on the back of that. Is already separating the top of that piece of wood from that piece of wood, and then again we can put a few little light flashes in like that, and then we can paint in a little bit of light in there like that. We can get some blue, some white. Let's get some more white down there. Bring that in there like that. Let's bring a bit of, because I like this colour, bringing a bit of that in there. Getting a bit of this yellow white. Maybe it's reflections of those clouds coming in like that. Who knows? I don't know. Starting to look a little bit more boat-like, I think. And just changing brush. Just changing the brush now. I'm still using the same type of colours, a bit of ultramarine blue, a bit of black, a bit of burnt umber. Trying to get these things in now. I put a light colour there, and now I'm going to put a dark colour underneath it, so it looks as if it's a bit of a lip look. Get some black. Back into some black now. Let's get some, just thinning that black down a little bit, because I want it to run a bit. Oops, I picked up a bit of white then. I didn't want to do that, did I? But that's not a bad thing. Let's live with that. Let's just get some black over there. Dark down that edge a bit. Washing that brush, getting a bit of this cerulean blue and white, a little bit of black's left on my brush. That's okay, because all that's going to do is just allow me to put a bit of light across the top like that. And then let's just get a bit of this cerulean blue and paint these light reflections in. As I said, I think what I'm going to do is continue with this painting a bit longer than what I would normally do, because normally by now I would have just finished filming and said that's it. But I think I'm liking the way this painting is going, and it's got such a fantastic memory for me that I want to actually pursue doing a little bit more to this painting and putting a lot more detail into it, and putting a frame on it, which I'm going to do. I'm going to just pop out and get the frame in a second, because I purposely made this this piece of wood the right size for the frame that I made. And as you can see, I'm already started to play too much, and I need to let it rest, I think, because I don't want to spoil this painting. I really do like it. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to pop out in a minute and get this frame, put the frame on it, see what the frame looks like on it, and I think I'll see where we go with the video then. There you go. I'm just going to go and get that frame. Okay, so what I thought I would do is let me just take the original off there, and that's just one of those little bits of blue tack, like that's what I stick my stuff on with, in case you're wondering. Now I got the frame. Let's put that in there. Let's see what that looks like. There you go. Looks lively. I've just got to paint the frame now. I've got to do a little bit more work on the painting itself, But I think I'm just going to call that done. And I'm going to leave the lesson there. So thank you very much for joining me in the studio today. Please like, comment, share and subscribe, and don't forget to click that notification button on the main channel. And if you would mind, support me by subscribing. That would be great. So thank you very much, and I'll see you in the studio again. Bye.